Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to learn about a topic that'll shake you to your core, and that's earthquakes. You've probably felt an earthquake before. We had one last summer. Earthquakes are the sudden movement of rocks along a fault, and that releases a large amount of energy. This energy becomes the earthquake. Earthquakes happen pretty much anywhere on the planet, but just there's some places, obviously, that are much more common. Around where we are here in New York State, we do have, once in a while, some small earthquakes. There's always a potential for a larger one, but that's why we're studying this topic. The focus. This is actually the point inside the earth where the earthquake occurs. You're probably not used to that word, the focus. What you're used to is a more common term, the epicenter. And this is the point on Earth's surface directly above the focus. So you can see in this diagram here, the epicenter is this little arrow here, and there's the focus point down there. And if you just drew a line up to the surface, that imaginary point is the epicenter. But the actual earthquake is centered beneath the Earth's surface, and the crust breaking creates these shock waves which spread away in all directions. Those shock waves are called seismic waves, which is the next term here. Shock waves produced, let me get this thing out of the way, by an earthquake. And the depth beneath the surface of the Earth from the epicenter to the focus is called the focal depth, which is important for later in lab class, because we're going to do a lab where we study focal depths at plate boundaries. All right, moving on. A seismograph. Now, these are those instruments you've probably seen in movies or on television after an earthquake with the squiggly lines. Seismographs nowadays can be more digitally oriented. My iPod Touch has a seismograph built in. It's not as sensitive, obviously, as some of these things. But the basic premise behind it is the ground shakes, in this case horizontally, and the pen is attached to a heavy weight which through inertia wants to stay in the same spot. It's connected by a spring right here. So as the ground moves left and right, the drum moves left and right with it. And the pen stays in the same spot and draws the earthquake. And the more the earth shakes, the bigger the squiggles get. So here you can actually see no earthquake, slight feeling of something, and then boom, the earthquake. And then it tails off. And the same with all these other ones too. All right, wave velocity, which is speed, versus rock density. Seismic waves change speed as the layers they travel through change in rigidity and composition. And we know that the Earth has different layers in it, made of different materials and have different densities and therefore different rigidities, how stiff they are. And this results in refraction or bending of seismic waves. And in this diagram here, it just shows as you go deeper into the Earth, this is depth over here. And these are the seismic waves plotted for S waves and P waves, which we'll get to. You can see they actually change their angle, meaning they're changing their speed. Same here, changing speed as they go deeper. They call these discontinuities, where they don't match up right there and there, there and there. And that means there's a big change in composition or in state of matter. And we learn a lot about what's inside the Earth by looking at seismic waves. Okay, this diagram right here shows the refraction occurring inside the Earth. So the earthquake here is occurring up on the Earth's surface in the top of this picture. And as the waves spread, they're going through materials of different densities, different rigidities, and different states of matter. And as they do that, they start to bend or refract. Now, it's obviously a simplified picture here, but you get the idea. And a lot of bending going on when it hits the core of the Earth, and then it comes back out of the core. And so I'm not going to draw all these, but you get the idea that waves, seismic waves, they refract, they bend when they travel through the Earth. Okay, the types of earthquake waves. The first type we call the P waves, the primary waves. These are also called compressional waves. And you can see in this picture here how it shows like graph paper type stuff, and the graph paper is just there to mainly show you that as the wave travels, it's moving back and forth so that it's compressing this material. Now if this was land, it would get smushed and stretched out, smushed and stretched out. And we'll play with the slinky after this to show you that motion. But if this was like a fence that was in this type of earthquake and these waves affected it, you'd see how it would just break the fence posts horizontally, the ones running left and right here, by smushing them and then stretching them back out again. Now, the thing about P waves that you really need to know, besides what I just told you, is they can pass through solid or liquid rock, and that's important for later on. The S waves, the secondary waves, these travel slower. They're also called shear waves because of the way they move. The motion of the ground is perpendicular or side to side to the direction of the wave, and these waves pass through solid rock only. So in this case, you see it moving this way. It's kind of hard to tell, but the wave is traveling to the right that I just drew, but the motion is perpendicular to that. And when we play with the slinkies again later, you'll see this. Okay, the third type of wave, the Love and the Rayleigh waves that we're going to learn about. These are actually two different types, but we'll lump them in because they're not as important to what our topic is in this unit. But these ones are important in other respects because they're responsible for a heck of a lot of damage on the surface of the earth. And you can actually, in some earthquakes, witnesses have seen the earth itself ripple, kind of like the surface of water. It's just amazing to think that that could happen, but the rock and the soil does move like that. So those are the three types of waves. Moving on. The shadow zone. Now remember back to the other slide I showed you with the refraction. Well, if you think about it, this point right here and this point right here, and then the next wave that comes through, these are P waves, and right here, comes out here, there's no waves that can go in this area or this area of the earth if the earthquake occurs up here. Now this is called the shadow zone. Obviously there's no earthquake waves, no seismic waves, so it creates a shadow. Now this isn't just on the right and the left hand sides of this picture. It's actually like a kind of like a toroid shape, a disc around the earth, all the way around, if you could think three-dimensionally, that would receive no direct earthquake waves. Now they would get indirect waves, they'd get vibrations bouncing back off from other parts of the earth, but no direct waves from the earthquake occur in that shadow zone. And I'm not really sure if this is working, but if not, I can show you this after the video. Nope, not working. So let's just move on. And that is it.